All right, welcome to Equity, Consistency, Humanity, the emerging potential of AI to improve learning experiences. Now, in this panel discussion, we have some really engaging speakers, and I don't want to get in the way of just jumping straight into introductions so that we can get into the discussion. So I am delighted to introduce Dr. Gangaram Singh from National University and Dr. Tyra from Xavier University of Louisiana. Could I get, let's start with Dr. Singh. Could you briefly introduce yourself to the audience and say a little bit about your interest and expertise in artificial intelligence in the classroom?
Good morning, Craig. My name is Gangaram Singh, and I'm the Provost and Executive Vice President of National University, which is located in California, in La Jolla. Before that, I was at San Diego State, where I served as a professor, chair of the management department, and dean of the business school. My interest in AI, and specifically Packback, was to integrate assessment-led adaptive instruction in our curriculum so that we could personalize the experience for each student. And I was concerned about scale because we have 45,000 students across the system, mostly predominantly online. And so for students, Backpack provided the potential to improve their retention and engagement, and above that, learning in this particular situation in a discussion board. And for the faculty, I was looking for an opportunity to target the appropriate support. AI should never be about replacing the faculty. It should be about complementing what the faculty does in the classroom. And so we were very happy to work with Packback to pilot this artificial intelligence with regards to these discussion board. And we're seeing some incredible results right now.
Perfect. There is a lot of stuff in there that I think we're about to dive into, but before that, I'd like to address the same question to Dr. Gross.
Dr. Tyra Gross, assistant professor at Xavier University of Louisiana, which is a historically Black college and university located in New Orleans. We're the only one that actually has a Catholic background. So social justice is one of the big underpinnings of our pedagogy at the university. And as a public health professor and professional, my classrooms are very discussion oriented, even from the freshman level. And so when the pandemic started, I really was looking for a way to enrich discussion in the classroom, albeit socially distant, albeit online. And I can't even remember how. Packback came across my email. I did kind of an overview tutorial of how the platform works, and I was vulnerable and jumped in. So I am definitely a newbie in terms of artificial intelligence and some of the options and capabilities that it can allow for professors such as myself. But I liked what Dr. Singh said about complement and also scale. So at my university, we are primarily an undergraduate teaching institution, and it's not uncommon for some professors to have 4 separate course preps. 4 classes is my usual load. And so I was looking for a way to kind of still enrich and bring discussion, which is a very big part of my social justice pedagogy, but not at the expense of burnout or stretching myself thin, because also our enrollment has been climbing, especially within our program of public health during the pandemic. And so how to scale what I already was doing before, but not burning myself out, but having some support. So I really appreciate the support that Packback has provided for me as an instructor.
Awesome. And I think we're going to dive into your pedagogy and some of the experiences of your students very shortly. I will just quickly introduce myself as well. My name is Craig Booth. My background is academia. I was most recently a researching astrophysicist at the University of Chicago. I moved away from teaching and academia into the tech space. So my experience of AI in the classroom is actually largely from the other side of things, which is I help to develop and build AIs that are used in classrooms. Now, both Dr. Singh and Dr. Gross are users of Packback. So before we go any further, I'd just like to say a few words about what Packback is and what AI is, and then we're just going to dive into their experiences. So Packback is a discussion platform. That said, it's a discussion platform that takes a different approach to online discussion in the classroom, which is focused on inquiry. And what I mean by that is that on Packback, students are the ones who are asking discussion questions and driving the discussion in their classes. And this is something that really supports communities of inquiry. It motivates students to be more autonomous, it inspires motivation, and it helps through critical thinking. If you hear that and think, how can Packback possibly do that? The answer in part is that Packback uses artificial intelligence, AI, to do things such as automatically monitor and moderate student discussions, to instantly and individually coach students on their writing, and to help instructors scale their feedback and their impact, especially in large courses, more than would be possible for a human on their own. So just one definition to get out of the way before we dive into the open-ended questions. We've thrown around the term AI a whole bunch already, so let's just say what that means. My favorite definition of AI is artificial intelligence. AI is when computers do things that humans usually do. So a computer playing chess is AI. A computer automatically moderating a student discussion post in a class is AI. And in particular, if you ever hear the phrase machine learning thrown around, this is a branch of artificial intelligence which is concerned with throwing large amounts of data at an algorithm and using that data to teach the algorithm how to do things. So here's where we are at the moment. Dr. Singh and Dr. Gross are both the users of the Packback platform. The Packback platform is an inquiry-based discussion platform that is powered by AI. And with that, I really just want to dive into people's experiences. So maybe I'll address this first to Dr. Gross. Could you tell me a little bit about what were your hopes for adopting Packback in your classroom, and what were some of the results and impact you've observed so far?
I think my hopes initially were just to allow, I don't want to say a replacement of small group discussions that we had in the classroom, but to, I guess, translate it online in a socially distant classroom setting to just generate student discussion and to see how this could allow even the quiet speakers to also express themselves into voice. And another thing that I really like about the Packback platform, to Dr. Craig's point earlier, is about the critical thinking and the writing. And so I think a lot of our students, especially when they first come in, they don't write answer. They want yes, no, check, I got it right, I got all of my points. Whereas with Packback, it's coaching you and guiding you on and asking the right kinds of questions that spur discussion and thinking, instead of just like, is the sky blue? Yes, no, why, why is the sky blue? Or how is it that the sky can be blue and it can also be different colors? So I think really one of the hopes was to foster kind of like a connected class climate, even during some of the adaptations that we're doing during the pandemic, but also to help students with their writing and critical thinking. And the results and impact, students overall have really liked it. And I've noticed that some students get really, really competitive. And so even if I set the threshold as a curiosity score of, say, I think it's 40 in my freshman level class, some of them, they are trying to get 100. So I think it makes them even dig deeper because they like the reward of seeing themselves on what's called the Packback leaderboard. And I like to give props on like, oh, I really like so-and-so's questions. And so there's kind of like this healthy competition also built within the platform. And the impact that I've seen is that my courses, and I'm really proud of this with my students being from an HBCU, that their Packback average has been higher than the national average. And so that's also just like a little toot that I want to put in since I have the mic right now. But those are my hopes, and I think it surpassed my initial desires for adopting this platform.
That is absolutely incredible. Just for the audience, the curiosity score is just how Packback automatically grades posts. I was curious, since last time we spoke, you had some sort of really exceptional stories about your students. Are there any real standout moments that you could share with the audience at the moment?
Well, right now, this is the first time that I'm using Packback as a way for students to reflect on our book club that we're doing in the senior level global health course. And the book that we picked is a brand new book that came out over the summer by Jeremy Williams. I think he's an author based in the UK, called Climate Change is Racist. And so I thought, instead of having students have to like type papers and format and all of that and submit that weekly, maybe we can use Packback as a way to make sure students are reading the book club reading ahead of time. And so I'm really excited that it's helping students read ahead and generate really thoughtful questions about the topic of climate change, which we just survived Hurricane Ida here in New Orleans. So that's always a very front and center topic as we talk about public health issues.
That's great to hear. And let's address the same question to Dr. Singh from the point of view of a provost in your institution. You already said a bit about what you were hoping to achieve, but maybe you could talk a bit about the impact at a larger scale that you're trying to have.
You know, and to put it in the context of social justice, I think the core explanation for inequity in society is that we treat everyone the same, right? And that's not true. I mean, if you want to be truly fair and equitable, you have to see each individual as an individual and be able to step up and help that particular individual or support that individual in society. And so what we were trying to do is adaptive assessment-led adaptive instruction was part of that journey. At the beginning, we wanted to look at a diagnostic assessment to see where our learners were coming in, because we are predominantly an adult serving institution. So where were they coming in? And at the end, we wanted to make sure that there was a ramp for our students to get off that is not necessarily a degree. Because when we're talking about adult learners, they want to be able to use their competencies the next day in the labor market. And in between, we knew we had to keep pace with this assessment-led adaptive instruction to make sure that they weren't falling off from the time we assessed them at the beginning to the time we issue them with a credential. So that's where this discussion, because it was predominantly in an online environment, Packback provided the opportunity for us to pay careful attention to how students were engaged with the material so that we could move them along this journey. Thank you.
That's really fantastic to hear. And maybe this just leads into the next question directly. So maybe we'll stick with you for 1 minute, Dr. Singh. And sort of a lot of what you just talked about was sort of visionary in scope. So maybe we can just jump straight in to talking about instructors often being nervous about the use of AI in the classroom for the fear that it might replace an instructor. So could you maybe talk a bit about your vision for how a combination of instructors paired with instructional AI can create new possibilities for creating high quality and inclusive student experiences?
Right. Thanks, Craig. It actually helps that I've been in the classroom for 30 years. And so coming from that position is important, and to be able to pivot in this day and age, you know, in terms of moving forward. So starting from a position of I've been there and, you know, we're in this together. And the most critical thing in terms of introducing what we're terming in a broad context, these innovations in the classroom, is professional development and support, You know, the same thing we want to do with our students, we have to do with our faculty, right? We have to be able to say, we're here for you. We understand you're a great teacher. We understand you're a great scholar. Now we have some new instruments that we can use. Let us use them, you know, and I often refer to them at that age group where, you know, I used to take a punch card to do statistical analysis on a mainframe computer, right? And now I can do it on my telephone, right? The same level of sophistication. So this is another tool in the evolution of technology that will help us to revolutionize our profession and to keep us ahead of the curve in terms of serving learners. So that's, Craig, that's how we have been doing it, and our professors have stepped up. I think, you know, the Packback folks will tell you, they're lining up to actually get in. So it's not it hasn't been a resistance once you see it as a complement to what is already an excellent teaching andragogy or pedagogy, depending on your orientation.
I love that way of phrasing it. You said another tool that can revolutionize teaching. And I think, you know, this is the best way to think about it. You know, the best chess players in the world at this point are not humans and they're not machines. They are humans and machines working together to do what they're good at. And the AI is something that lets us scale inclusive education and frees humans up to do the things that humans are really good at, which is caring for and building connections with students. And Dr. Gross, I would love to bring it back to you at this point to maybe talk about your hopes for the future or how you have found yourself interacting with the artificial intelligence.
I was laughing to myself because as Dr. Singh was sharing about the punch card, the analogy that I was thinking about was a washing machine. Like, I mean, you could hand wash all of your clothes and line them up on the dryer, but it's a tool to help you just have to fold the clothes. So I think sometimes in instructors, we're so used to doing things a certain way, and there is a learning curve with adapting any kind of new technology, but this isn't the kind of thing that would replace you. And I think that's also maybe a point of insecurity, that we feel like we are replaceable. But I think my hopes is that, especially for smaller institutions where you may not have graduate teaching assistants or those that help do a lot of the advising. So, for example, I have a list of students that I have to advise. I also have mentees and I have classes, right? And other service responsibilities. And what I've really enjoyed learning from people outside of academia is, you know, like a lot of industries are trying these new things, and academia can sometimes be a little bit slow in adapting things such as remote work and all of these things. But looking at other sectors, I think that we can see that there are tools that don't replace us, but they support us so that we can do the higher leverage things, such as working with students one-on-one on public speaking, or mentoring them in research projects, or doing things out in the field, such as COVID testing, whatever it is. And so I think, you know, I'm hoping that other instructors like myself will be vulnerable and try it and see the ways that it can support them, and know that it also can be adapted to their discipline, their course level, that they don't just have to take it as it's, you know, presented to them, but that they can also help make these tools better by using them and seeing what works and doesn't work.
I think that was such a good explanation of how AI can really help teachers. I think you literally said the phrase, it's letting me do what I'm good at, which is supporting students one-on-one and doing research. And we're just coming up to the 20-minute mark on this panel. So as much as I would love to sit and talk to you for the next 8-10 hours, we need to wrap this up. Dr. Singh, is there anything on your mind that you would like for the audience to take away from this panel in particular?
Yes, I think, you know, when we embrace adaptive assessment-led adaptive instruction, and we embrace AI as a tool to help us in that journey. One thing we wanted to be very cautious about was that the algorithm that you referred to earlier wasn't driving the way that we help our students. We wanted to complement that with theory. So as we get that automatic algorithm telling us where to intervene, we have to be able to superimpose theories and equity concerns on top of that. Because if we have students who are coming in with a disadvantaged background and we continue to perpetuate that, then we're not part of the solution, we're part of the problem. And so I think we just need to make sure that the specifications in terms of the algorithm that is going in, that we don't get lazy, that we stay on top of it, we look at it carefully, and we continue to tweak it so that we can get the results that we're looking at. So that's what I'd like us to take away from this.
That was a very powerful closing statement right there. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Gross, Dr. Singh. This has been a delightful conversation.